The rain hammered against the stained glass windows of St. Mary's Church like 1,000 accusing fingers, each drop echoing the fury boiling in my chest. I stood at the altar, my black dress clinging to my skin like a second layer of grief, staring at the polished mahogany casket that held what was left of my husband, David. The air was thick with the cloying scent of lilies. Funeral flowers they called them, but to me they smelled like decay, like the rot that had been festering in our marriage for years. And there she was, the pregnant mistress, waddling into the pew reserved for family. Her belly swollen with the child that should have been mine. My in-laws, Margaret and Harold, flanked her like bodyguards, their faces set in smug determination. "She's carrying his legacy," Margaret had whispered to me earlier, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Legacy. The word sliced through me like a knife. I wanted to scream, to shatter the solemn hush with the truth of his betrayal, but instead I froze, my hands trembling as the congregation's whispers buzzed like hornets in my ears. How dare they? How dare they parade his whore at his funeral, as if she belonged here more than I did? My mind reeled back to the night I found out. It was 3 months ago, a crisp autumn evening when the leaves outside our suburban home crunched underfoot like brittle bones. David had been distant for months. Late nights at the office, unexplained trips, that faraway look in his eyes when he touched me. I chalked it up to stress from his job as a corporate lawyer, the kind that chewed men up and spat them out. But that night, as I rifled through his desk drawer for the car keys, my fingers brushed against a hidden envelope. Photos spilled out. David and her, a woman named Elena, laughing in a park. His hand on her flat stomach in one, then curved protectively over a growing bump in another. Ultrasound images tucked inside, dated just weeks after our last failed IVF attempt. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. I collapsed onto the floor, the carpet fibers scratching my knees as sobs racked my body. Heartbreak wasn't just an emotion. It was a visceral ache, a hollowing out of my soul. How could he? We'd been married for 12 years, built a life together. House in the suburbs, weekend barbecues, dreams of a family that never came. And now this. A child with another woman, while I endured the sterile humiliation of fertility clinics alone. Denial came first, a fragile shield. Maybe the photos were faked, a cruel prank. But doubt crept in like fog, thick and suffocating. I confronted him that same night, my voice shaking as I thrust the envelope at him. "What is this, David? Who is she?" He didn't deny it. Instead, he sat on the edge of our bed, his head in his hands, muttering about how it just happened. How Elena made him feel alive again after our miscarriages drained the joy from our marriage. "I still love you, Sarah," he said, his eyes pleading. Love. The word tasted like ash. Humiliation burned through me, picturing them together, her young body yielding what mine couldn't. I screamed at him, words tumbling out in a torrent of rage. "You bastard! After everything we've been through." He reached for me, but I slapped his hand away, the sting on my palm mirroring the one in my heart. That night, I slept in the guest room, my mind racing with fantasies of justice. What if I exposed him? Ruined his reputation at the firm? Or worse, dark thoughts of accidents, of making him suffer as I had. But guilt gnawed at me. Was I the villain for even thinking it? Our marriage wasn't perfect. I'd been consumed by work too, a high school teacher burying myself in lesson plans to avoid the emptiness at home. Maybe I drove him away. The days blurred into a haze of resentment. I didn't leave him. Pride or habit kept me there, simmering in quiet obsession. I tracked Elena online. Her Instagram a parade of glowing pregnancy posts, hashtags like #blessed and #newbeginnings. Each like from David's secret account twisted the knife deeper. My in-laws knew, of course. Margaret called me the next week, her voice syrupy sweet over the phone. "Sarah, dear, we need to talk about Elena. She's family now." Family. The word ignited fury. Harold, ever the patriarch, chimed in during a tense family dinner. "David's made mistakes, but that baby's innocent. You wouldn't deny him his grandchild, would you?" Their words dripped with manipulation, revealing their true colors, always favoring their golden boy, dismissing my pain as hysteria. I bit my tongue, smiling through gritted teeth, but inside a cold resolve began to form. Revenge wasn't a sudden blaze. It was embers glowing hotter with each slight. Then came the accident. David, driving home late from work, which I now knew meant Elena's apartment, swerved off the road in a storm. The police said it was hydroplaning, but I wondered if guilt had made his hands slip. The call came at 2 a.m., shattering the silence of our empty house. "Mrs. Thompson, there's been an accident." Shock numbed me as I drove to the hospital, the wipers slashing rain like futile attempts to clear my vision. He was gone by the time I arrived. His body mangled in the ER. Grief crashed over me in waves. Heartbreak for the man I once loved, mingled with bitter relief. No more lies. But at the funeral home, planning the service, the in-laws ambushed me. "Elena should be there," Margaret insisted, her pearl necklace glinting under the fluorescent lights like tiny accusations. "She's carrying his child. It's only right." Harold nodded, his jowly face stern. "We've already invited her. Don't make a scene, Sarah." Humiliation flushed my cheeks. They treated me like an outsider in my own tragedy. I stormed out, the door slamming behind me with a finality that echoed my fracturing resolve. Back home, the house felt like a tomb. David's cologne lingering in the closets, his half-read books on the nightstand. I paced the living room, the hardwood floors creaking under my feet, my mind a whirlwind of planning and doubt. Call my brother Alex. He was always the protector, the one who punched bullies for me in school. But involving him meant admitting my weakness, my failure as a wife. Fear gripped me. What if revenge backfired? What if I became the monster? Yet obsession won out. I dialed Alex, my voice breaking as I spilled everything. "They want her at the funeral, Alex. Like she's the widow." Silence on the line, then his deep baritone. "Sarah, that's bullshit. What do you want me to do?" I hesitated, moral conflict twisting my gut. "Just be there. And speak if you have to." Little did I know his words would ignite the spark. The funeral day dawned gray and oppressive, the sky weeping as if in sympathy. Guests filed in, their murmurs a low hum like distant thunder. I stood by the casket, my fingers tracing the cold wood, whispering a final, conflicted goodbye. "You did this to us, David." Then Elena arrived, her maternity dress a soft pink blasphemy amid the black attire. She waddled to the front pew, supported by Margaret, who shot me a triumphant glance. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Shock, pity, judgment. My heart pounded, anger surging like bile. How could they? In that moment, humiliation morphed into cold calculation. I caught Alex's eye across the aisle. His jaw was set, eyes stormy. The service began, the priest's voice droning about eternal life, but tension crackled in the air like electricity before a storm. As eulogies commenced, Margaret rose, her voice quavering theatrically. David was a loving son, a devoted father-to-be. Father-to-be. The words landed like punches. Elena dabbed her eyes, her hand on her belly, playing the grieving lover to perfection. My nails dug into my palms, drawing blood. Then it was my turn. I approached the podium, legs unsteady, the microphone amplifying my ragged breaths. David was my husband. I began, voice steady despite the storm inside. We shared dreams, losses, but also secrets. Gasps echoed. I paused, doubt flickering. Should I expose it all? But before I could continue, Alex stood, his broad frame casting a shadow. "May I say something?" he asked, his tone deceptively calm. The priest nodded. Alex stepped forward, his boots thudding on the stone floor, and the room fell silent, suspense hanging like a noose. Alex cleared his throat, the sound reverberating through the hushed church like a warning shot. His eyes locked on Margaret and Harold, then flicked to Elena, who shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. "I've known David since Sarah brought him home 15 years ago," he began, his voice low and measured, like a predator circling prey. "He was charming, ambitious. But let's not sugarcoat it. He was also a liar. Murmurs erupted, a wave of shock rippling through the pews. Margaret's face paled, her hand clutching Harold's arm. I stood frozen, heart racing. This wasn't what I'd planned, but the suspense built inside me like a coiled spring. What was he doing? Alex continued, his words slicing through the tension. David cheated on my sister for years. Elena here. She's not the first. But she's the one who got pregnant, and the in-laws knew all along. Elena gasped, her hands flying to her mouth, tears streaming. Harold half rose, sputtering. This is outrageous. Sit down. But Alex ignored him, pulling out his phone. I have proof. Emails, texts. David bragging about his side piece to his buddies. And bank statements showing the in-laws funneled money to Elena, covering up the affair to protect their son's image. The church exploded into chaos. Guests whispered furiously, phones emerging like weapons. Margaret wailed. How dare you? This is a funeral. But Alex's revelation hung in the air, thick and irreversible. I felt a twisted thrill, revenge by proxy, my brother's words the blade I'd been too afraid to wield. As the service dissolved into disarray, Elena fled the pew, sobbing, her heels clicking frantically on the stone. I caught her eye for a split second. Fear, regret, perhaps a flicker of guilt. Outside, under the dripping eaves, Alex pulled me aside, rain pattering on the umbrella he held over us. I couldn't let them humiliate you like that, he said, his voice gruff. I dug into it after you called. Hired a PI. They deserve this. Gratitude swelled in me, mixed with unease. Was this justice, or had we crossed into vengeance? Moral conflict gnawed. Elena's child was innocent, a pawn in this mess. But the betrayal ran deep. The in-laws' complicity, their dismissal of my pain. Thank you, I whispered, hugging him. Yet inside, the embers of obsession flared brighter. This wasn't over. In the weeks that followed, grief morphed into a quiet storm. The house echoed with emptiness. The fridge stocked with sympathy casseroles I couldn't eat. Nights were the worst. Lying in our bed, sheets still faintly scented with him, my mind replaying the funeral like a looped film. Heartbreak lingered, but resentment dominated, fueling fantasies of further ruin. The in-laws cut me off, no calls, no visits. Elena vanished from social media, but I learned through whispers she'd moved in with them, their new family. It fueled my cold resolve. I pored over David's will at the lawyer's office, the sterile room smelling of leather and old paper. Everything to you, Sarah, the attorney said, but then dropped the bomb. Except a trust for the unborn child, set up by his parents. Betrayal anew. They'd manipulated David into it months ago. Anger surged. They'd stolen not just my husband but my future security. Doubt crept in, should I contest it? Risk a public battle? But planning took hold. I met Alex at a dimly lit coffee shop, steam rising from our mugs like secrets unveiled. We can fight this, he said, leaning in. Expose their financial tricks, tax evasion on those transfers to Elena. His words were natural, laced with suppressed rage. They think they're untouchable, but I've got dirt. Fear twisted my gut. What if it backfired, painting me as bitter? Yet the pursuit called a siren song of justice. Suspense built slowly, in stolen moments. I shadowed Elena once, from a distance, her belly larger now as she shopped at a grocery store, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows on her weary face. She looked haunted, glancing over her shoulder as if sensing eyes on her. Guilt pricked me. She was young, manipulated by David perhaps. But then I remembered her smug posts, her intrusion at the funeral. No, she chose this. Back home, I rifled through David's hidden files, discovering more. Love letters, receipts for jewelry I'd never seen. Each find deepened my obsession, layering resentment with cold calculation. Alex and I plotted over late-night calls. His voice a steady anchor. We'll leak it anonymously, he suggested. Media loves a scandal. Wealthy family hiding an affair. Moral grayness enveloped me. Was I destroying lives for satisfaction? The child would suffer stigma. But poetic justice beckoned. They'd paraded my humiliation. Now theirs would be public. The climax brewed like a storm. I attended a family meeting at the in-laws' sprawling estate. The manicured lawns a facade of perfection. Margaret greeted me at the door. Her makeup flawless but eyes red-rimmed. "Sarah, we need to talk about the baby." Inside, the living room reeked of potpourri masking tension. Harold paced, Elena sat on the couch, hands protectively over her bump. Dialogue crackled with manipulation. "You wouldn't take this from us, would you?" Margaret pleaded. "The child's innocent." Suppressed rage boiled in me. "Innocent? Like how you were innocent in covering for David." Elena spoke up, voice trembling. "I loved him, Sarah. He said you two were over." My heart pounded, but I played calm. "Over? Funny, he never mentioned that in bed." The room tensed, suspense thickening. Then Alex arrived uninvited, documents in hand. "Actually," he said, voice like gravel, "let's discuss the fraud." What followed was a whirlwind of revelations. Alex laid out evidence. Forged signatures on the trust, embezzled funds from Harold's business to support Elena. "You funneled company money," he accused, papers slapping the table. Harold blustered. "This is blackmail." But Elena broke first, sobbing. "They pressured me to keep quiet. David promised to leave you." The twist hit. My in-laws had orchestrated it all, pushing David into the affair to secure an heir after our fertility struggles. Margaret confessed in tears. "We just wanted a grandchild." Betrayal's depths stunned me. They'd betrayed their own son too, driving him to guilt-ridden recklessness. In that moment, revenge felt justified, yet hollow. I didn't press charges. Poetic justice in their ruin. Instead, I walked away, leaving them to their fractured family. Months later, as Elena's child cried in the background of a distant life, I stood at David's grave, wind whispering through the trees. Heartbreak had scarred me, but resolve freed me. The twist. Alex revealed he'd fabricated some evidence, a morally gray act to force the confession. "For you," he said. Guilt lingered, but so did peace. Revenge wasn't sweet. It was necessary, a cold balm on raw wounds.